a division I really do not want to talk about at all, but it has to be done. I don't even like any of the teams in this division. Why do I have to talk about it? I don't want to talk about this division, but I have to. Moving on to the AFC East, a division with lots of question marks all over the field, from the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. A chance for a potential 3 teams to make the playoffs. I don't see that happening, though. But you would think that the way that this division is hyped up, that all 3 could get into the playoffs. So let's get into it. Here's what I think. I think that the Bills win the division. Shocking, I know. But they take a big step backwards in their development. One of your star wide receivers is not happy to be there in Stephon Diggs. He wants out. You really have no identity in the running game. Who is going to play running back for you? But Josh Allen, I wouldn't say he's an elite quarterback by any means, but he's a good quarterback that can win you football games, and I think that they're going to rely heavily on him this season to win them games, and he'll do just enough to drag them into the playoffs. And I said they will take a step back. Their win total may not decrease at all, but they're going to take a giant step back when it comes to the playoffs. 10 to 11 wins for the Bills. They might even have 12 or 13, and then they'll get the divisional win, and we'll just have to see how the playoffs go. I think that's when they take a step back. I think they make the playoffs, they win the division, and then they could potentially lose in the first round to a team that we haven't mentioned yet, or they end up getting a team like the Broncos or even the Chargers, and they lose, and then that's when it's decision time for them. Is they're in a tough spot because the roster is built to win now, but they don't have the capabilities to win now. If that makes sense. They're in a very tough spot. Like the roster is pretty solid overall, but they've proven time and time again, year after year, that they don't have what it takes to win and to be a team that can make a deep Super Bowl run or even a deep playoff run. They've made the AFC Championship a few times based off of luck. I don't see them getting back there this year at all. I see them being just taking that step backwards. I mean, the defense is getting older. I mean, your best defensive player is Von Miller, and he's up there in age. And they have a lot of question marks to fulfill. But the division is weak enough for the Bills to win. I would say even their ceiling in this division is 13 wins. That doesn't mean that they'll do a whole lot in the playoffs, though. I'll be generous and give them 12 wins, so a 12-5 record into the playoffs for them. I know I've said this a lot, but a very, very interesting team is the Jets. Obviously, Jets made headline. I think they finished second, and they made headlines this offseason by trading for Aaron Rodgers, the longtime Packer great quarterback. The thing I don't understand about them is Rodgers, while in Green Bay, complained year after year that they didn't do enough to help him. They didn't get him enough help. So what does he do? He gets to the Jets. The Jets go out there. The Jets sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling. They sign Randall Cobb, and basically they're bringing the Packers to the Jets. When Aaron Rodgers' biggest complaint was that the Packers never had enough help to help him go on to the next level. Now the Packers had a Devontae Adams that they traded away, and the Jets have Garrett Wilson, who I think will be a very, very good favorite target he'll be a favorite target of Aaron Rodgers very, very early on. Garrett Wilson, I'm not saying he's as good as Devontae Adams, but he has potential to pretty much fill that Devontae Adams role that Aaron Rodgers was looking for in Green Bay when he left. Aaron Rodgers, I used to really like him, but quickly becoming a quarterback that I cannot stand, just because of the things that he's doing. You don't like the media, but you go to the media mecca of the world in New York. You complain that you have no help, and then you just go and you sign a bunch of Packer players. It's just the roster itself is good enough to make the playoffs, and I think they will make the playoffs. I think 9 to 10 wins, 11 is even possible. They could challenge the Bills for the division in the AFC East, and then they're going to get a dose of reality when they make the playoffs. I think the big thing with this division is they're all capable of doing big things in the regular season. But it's the playoffs that are going to come back to haunt them. Is I don't think any team in here is going to represent the Super Bowl in any way. You will see who I think makes the Super Bowl this year, but I don't think anybody here. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs, and I think the Jets do just that and make the playoffs. They finish second, with like 10 wins. Aaron Rodgers has got to stop complaining so much. Shut up, do your job, play football, and the rest will come. You have a good young core there. I don't know why you felt the need to bring in 99-year-old Randall Cobb. I mean, I understand the familiarity factor and all of that, but the dude is not going to be your safety blanket. You will enjoy the receivers that the Jets have already a lot more than Randall Cobb and Valdez-Scantling. Not really sure why either of them were brought in. You were better off bringing in a tight end like Runyon or whatever his name is that you were familiar with in Green Bay. A surprise here in third, and I will explain the reasoning behind it. I have the New England Patriots finishing third in the division. Problem with the Patriots is you have a fantastic offensive line, arguably one of the best offensive lines in all of the National Football League. You have a very good defense. The problem lies with the quarterback and Mac Jones. This team will not win anything under the Mac Jones era. I know Bill Belichick, as good of a coach as he is, he tries to outsmart everybody and think that he's smarter than everybody by proving that he can win with Mac Jones. It's time to give up on the Mac Jones experiment. It's not working. It hasn't worked. This is going to be, I believe, when my Patriots fan friend watches this video, he can quote me on this. I think this is year 4 of Mac Jones, and he's shown no real big signs of significant improvement, which going into year 4 and showing no signs of improvement is not good. And you have to at least show somewhat of an improvement year to year. I'm not sure why the Patriots fan base is so behind Mac Jones when year after year he's proven that this is as good as it's going to get for him. But I think they surprise people because they have a good enough run game, their defense is solid, and their offensive line is solid. Mac Jones is the only thing holding them back. And I think at some point we're going to see Bailey Zappi or even Malik Cunningham. Both are on their practice squad, and both of those guys, I think, will be the difference in the Patriots this season. Mac Jones will get benched, I think, halfway through or even a quarter of the way through the season when Bill Belichick smartens up and realizes, okay, this dude just is not good. He's not the answer. He doesn't have what it takes for us to be where I want us to be. There's also reports that Bill Belichick could be on the hot seat, and those are the absolute wildest and dumbest rumors I think I've ever heard. The dude has 6 Super Bowl rings. He will leave on his own terms no matter how bad he does in the future and this season and seasons forward. The dude will leave on his own terms. The dude is literally probably has one of the most untouchable jobs in the entire league, right up there with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh and like Andy Reid in Kansas City. Like, those jobs are untouchable pretty much. He's not getting fired. He's not going anywhere. Patriots fans are just going to have to deal with that and accept it. And Mac Jones is not the answer for the Patriots, but they're good enough. The Dolphins, I have finishing dead last, and here's the reason. Yes, they traded for Jalen Ramsey. Yes, they have Tua Tagovailoa. Yes, they have Tyreek Hill in a roster that's ready to win now, but they can't stay healthy. Jalen Ramsey's expected to miss time starting into the season. We know Tua Tagovailoa is one concussion away from being Antonio Brown. While I like Skylar Thompson as their backup, I just don't think they can win many games with anybody. I don't even think they can win a lot of games with Tua being fully healthy. I've never been big on Tua Tagovailoa like other people have. He kind of falls under that Mac Jones branch where this is, I believe, this might even be year 5 for him because I think he came out a year before Mac Jones. He hasn't really shown any giant, significant signs of improvement and injury. He's always injured. Was always injured at Alabama. And that's followed him over to the pros. And like I said, he's one concussion. He's one concussion away from being Antonio Brown with the CTE kicking in. Other than that, with Jalen Ramsey expected to miss time, this team really just isn't that good. And I don't see them really winning a lot of games due to that. Injuries will come back to haunt this team. They could make the playoffs if they stay healthy, but health is the biggest concern for me with the Dolphins. 6 wins, 7 wins for them. Very disappointing year for the Miami Dolphins, and they'll have decisions to make because I don't even think their coach McDonald wants Tua Tagovailoa to play quarterback, but they're kind of in a situation where they don't really have any other choice right now. Dolphins they're good, but they won't be healthy enough to be able to make any noise in my opinion this year. So a shock for me right there is the Dolphins will finish last, 6 wins. I think the Patriots will be about 500, 7 to 8 wins for them. Yes, I know there's a 17th game. They'll finish just under 500. The Jets will win 9 or 10 games and make the playoffs. And then the Bills win the division. Their regular season record will not be affected. 11, 12, maybe even 13 wins for the Bills. And then come playoff time, they will choke it away. Those are my AFC East predictions. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Am I crazy for thinking that the Patriots will finish ahead of the Dolphins? The Jets, while good, don't really have, and the Bills for that sake as well, good rosters, but not Super Bowl worthy. So yeah, that is my AFC. Oh, a division where... a wild division at that. We will be moving on to the AFC North. So for the AFC North, a division, arguably the best division in football this year. All 4 teams, despite of, now I understand and the values that we have in life, but regardless of what we feel on the Deshaun Watson situation, he's playing football, and it is what it is. As far as the AFC North goes, this division has potential to see all 4 of them in the playoffs, and that's with the added playoff team. The added game and the added playoff team. There is a chance that all 4 teams get into the playoffs, and the way that my AFC is shaping out, it's very well possible that all 4 teams do get into the playoffs. I think I'm going to... I think that the Bengals win the division, but it's not as easy as it has been in years past. I think that they have the most ready-to-win now roster on this division and in this conference. I have them winning probably 12, 13 games. The offensive line is still shaky, but Joe Burrow and company, is good enough to win a lot of football games. A lot of it will be outside of the division. I think they'll struggle within the division. I think they'll split with the Browns. They'll probably split with the Steelers. And they'll probably split with the Ravens. They might even lose 2 to the Ravens or 2 to the Steelers. They'll really struggle within the division to win games, but outside of the division, I think that's where most of their wins will come from. The most win now team in the division in the conference, I have the Bengals. Spoiler, I have the Bengals in the Super Bowl coming up this year. I think that last year's loss really did something to them, and I think that Joe Burrow and company will take that personal, and they will win 12 to 13 games. They'll roll in the playoffs, and they'll make the Super Bowl. Who? I mean, if you watch my NFC North, or if you watch my NFC videos, you know who I think is coming out of that. So yeah, I have the Bengals winning 12 or 13 games, finishing top of the division. They might even win 14 games. They could go 14-3. Very good possibility. They'll be up there as one of the best teams in the NFL. Everything that the Bengals have done is, okay, we're ready to win now, and we're going to keep that for a while. Much like the Bills in the AFC, it's Super Bowl or bust, but I think they're in a much better position to make the Super Bowl than the Bills are. I think their roster overall is better. I think Joe Burrow is better than Josh Allen. I think Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback in this league, right up there with Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and those guys. I think he's right up there as an elite quarterback in this league, and big things are coming for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Baltimore Ravens, I think, finished second. The biggest thing for the Ravens this year is it's a put up or shut up year for Lamar Jackson. You whined and complained until you got paid. You finally got paid. So now that you got paid, it has to result in winning. It just has to. You can't sit there, complain that you're not getting paid, sitting out the last few years injured, and then not produce wins. You have to win now. Now it is put up or shut up for Lamar Jackson. The roster is ready to win now. I think he's got good running backs. J.K. Dobbins, I expect to take a massive step forward for them. Coming off that ACL injury last year, I think this is his rebound year. J.K. Dobbins is probably one of the best running backs in the league when healthy. And the Ravens are always very tough, always very good. And Lamar Jackson's health has to be number one. Lamar Jackson has to stay healthy, has to produce wins, and he has to get the Ravens into a deep playoff run. He has to. Like, you can't just demand that kind of money and then not show up when it matters most. And the Ravens are they're in a very, very tricky situation because you gave Lamar Jackson the money, but he hasn't proven that he is deserving of the money, and so now you're in a situation where you're stuck with him, and if it doesn't pan out, you're in that situation where you can't really hit the rebuild button because you're paying Lamar Jackson all this money. But the defense, the one thing I will say about the AFC North is they've always had good defenses. They've always been a tough-nosed division. This division has always been tough no matter what. No matter who's having a down year, who's having an up year or a down year, this division has always been tough and always one of the most fun to watch. But I think the Ravens get 11 wins, gets them into the playoffs, and it's going to depend on the health of Lamar Jackson to see how far they go. Who knows? Maybe if Lamar Jackson can stay healthy and they can possibly make some noise, who knows? We could potentially, I'm not saying it'll happen, but we could potentially see an AFC championship of the Bengals and the Ravens. Not saying it'll happen, but that kind of has to be the expectations. If you're the Ravens this year, that has to be the expectations for you, especially after giving Lamar Jackson all that money. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Lamar Jackson. I think that he is a run-first quarterback that struggles still with accuracy as long as he's been in the league. And that's always been a giant red flag of his, is his accuracy. Anybody can throw screen passes and short passes and look good. His deep ball and all that, really, it's iffy most of the time. And Lamar Jackson, the Ravens season, and this happens for a lot, especially nowadays in the NFL, comes down to quarterback play. And Lamar Jackson has the whole Ravens team riding on his shoulders for how good they are. This could be disastrous for the Ravens. I have them 11 wins, but this could be disastrous for them. They could win 7 games and miss out on the playoff. I have just a little bit of faith that Lamar Jackson will finally earn that paycheck of his, and the Ravens will be a team to watch out for in the playoff. Moving on to the team I think will finish third, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a chance to finish second. I was talking about some of the most secure jobs in the NFL with the AFC East and Bill Belichick. There is no safer and more secure job in the NFL than Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin has yet to have a losing season in the NFL as a head coach. That is impeccable. No matter what you think of the Steelers, if you like them, you hate them, no matter what, Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach, and he always, no matter the situation, gets the absolute best out of his players. And I think this year is no different. Kenny Pickett, we're not really... The verdict is still out on Kenny Pickett if he's that guy for the future or not. He had a decent rookie season. He didn't really do anything wrong necessarily, but he definitely has to take that next step forward if the Steelers want to be serious contenders. Najee Harris in the running game is going to be there, and the Steelers are going to run the ball. But the thing that concerns me the most with the Steelers is that offensive line is very, very shaky. It's not a good offensive line. For an offensive line that relies so heavily on the run, can you keep Kenny Pickett upright is going to be the biggest thing. Their defense lost some key names like Cameron Sutton and company, but I think that Tomlin is a coach that no matter what will get the best out of his players, and the defense, while lackluster, not as great as it has been in previous years, I think that it'll be good enough and serviceable enough to get them 9 to 10 wins and into the playoffs. Steelers return to the playoffs. They don't make a lot of noise in the playoffs, but maybe they get somebody like the Bills and they can upset the Bills in the first round. Personally, I can see that happening. I think it'll be Steelers-Bills first round of the playoffs, and they get past the Bills. Not Steelers don't get past the Steelers in the playoffs. Excuse me. Steelers get past the Bills in the playoffs and potentially make some noise there. But as long as Mike Tomlin is the head coach of the Steelers will not finish below 500. The Steelers will have at least 9 wins guaranteed this year. But I can see 10 or 11 in going into the playoffs. Now we have to talk about the Browns. I mentioned it earlier and I have to mention it again. No matter what our thoughts are on Deshaun Watson, whether we think he's a good human being that made a mistake or he's just a terrible human overall, that doesn't seem to matter to the NFL, as we know how the NFL is with their policies. Their policies have always been backwards, but that is a conversation for a different day. If Deshaun Watson can return to the Deshaun Watson in Houston, then the Browns have a really good chance to be good this year. Last year, we kind of seen him touch a football field for the first time in almost 2 years. And we know the running game is there. They have good enough wideouts, and they have a very improving defense. Their offensive line is satisfying. There's not really anything wrong with the Browns. They haven't figured out a way to put it all together yet. And if the Browns can figure out a way to put all that talent that they have together, then they'll be something. But the biggest question mark for them going into this season is, can they figure out how to put all that talent together? Because if you look at their roster on paper, one of the most talented teams in the entire conference on paper. But obviously games are not played on paper. If they were, the Lions would be crowned Super Bowl champions this year because everybody's buying into them. So games aren't played on paper. Is Watson going to return to his Houston form that can lead a team to big things? That's yet to be seen. I think that the Browns finishing 4th in this division isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't think they'll be as bad or as good as people think they'll be. Like, I know people think they could have a chance at the AFC Championship. I'm not one of those. I think they could sneak into the playoffs, potentially, with like 8 or 9, maybe even 10 wins for them. Would be satisfactory, and I think it's very possible that they do. I do think that they can sneak into the playoffs. I have them at 9 wins, 10 wins, 9, 10 wins, making the playoffs. All 4 teams in this division make the playoffs. and it's up in the air to see what they do. So just to recap a little bit, I think the Bengals head to the Super Bowl. I think the Ravens have to put up or shut up this year, but 13 wins for the Bengals. I have 11 wins for the Ravens, 10 wins for the Steelers, and 9 wins for the Browns. But all 4 make the playoffs. We'll just have to see what happens once the playoffs come. Like I said, I have the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And if you watched my NFC videos, I have the Eagles in the Super Bowl as well. So I have the Bengals versus the Eagles. You figure that out on who you think is the better team and who will win. But that's my Super Bowl predictions this year. Eagles versus Bengals.